What is going on, you guys? It's your girl Diana, back at you with another YouTube video. So if you've been following along with my live streams, you would know that recently I've decided to dive into the world of VGC. And with Regulation C out, you already know that I've been running into a ton of Paradox and Ruinous Pokemon. So today I thought it would be a fun activity for me to rank all of the Paradox and Ruinous Pokemon to find out which are my favorites. Remember that this is all solely my opinion, and yes, the way that they look will have a huge effect on where they rank. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the rankings. I did manage to find a tier list that included the newly added Paradox legendaries for Virizion and Suicune, aka Iron Leaves and Walking Wake. But let's go ahead and hop into this tier list. Like I said, the way that they look will have a large impact on where they stand in the rankings, but I will also take into consideration how useful they are as well. So starting off with Verizon Wireless's Paradox form, Iron Leaves. Oddly enough, these raids were harder than the Walking Wake raids, so this thing can definitely pack a pretty powerful punch, and personally, I think it looks really cool, so I'm gonna put it at A tier. Next up, we have Great Tusk. I've actually been meaning to build a Great Tusk, which maybe that's basic because I feel like everybody has been running Great Tusk these days. However, ever since Great Tusk came out, I don't know what it is about the design, but I think it's adorable. Maybe because it's pink, but it was literally in the background of my trainer profile picture for the longest time. Not to mention it is pretty useful in competitive battle, so I think for me, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at S tier. Next up, we have P. Diddy, which is what I named my shiny Screamtail, which is actually my very first full odd shiny that I caught in Scarlet and Violet. And I have literally put that thing on every single one of my doubles teams since I caught it. So therefore, it is going S tier for me. Besides, I have always been a huge Jigglypuff fan, so the fact that they gave it some great hair in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and showed it some love by giving it a stronger form, you already know that I was all over that from day one. Next up, we have Iron Treads. Honestly, I feel like Iron Treads kind of gets outshined by Great Tusk, so I do have to put it at C tier. Up next, we have Roaring Moon. So Roaring Moon not only can be pretty useful in competitive battle, if you throw booster energy on it, Flying Terra, and acrobatics, you already know you're going to be hitting hard. Not to mention it just looks cool. So for me, I'm putting it at S tier. Up next, we have Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant was one of my favorites ever since I saw it, just because I am a huge Gardevoir fan, and the fact that it mixes Gallade and Gardevoir, I love it. I love its design. I think this is probably the best looking of the future Paradox Pokemon. I just wish it wasn't so squishy in battle, but I still like the way that it looks, so I'm gonna put it at A tier. Next up, we have Koraidon. So Koraidon is another one of my favorites from this generation because he acts like a giant puppy. I also think he's a lot cuter than Miraidon, so for me, personally, I'm putting it at S tier. Miraidon, however, can go at A tier because it's not bad looking either, and it is really useful. I would say it probably sees more use than Koraidon, so therefore it deserves A tier, even though I think that Koraidon is cuter. Now, Walking Wake, I feel like this is a very divisive one because some people hate its design and some people love it. Me personally, I'm one of the people that thinks it's adorable. Just look at his little T-Rex hands. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him at S tier just because I think he's adorable. And I'm pretty sure that once this thing becomes legal to use in battle, you're gonna be seeing a lot of them running around because it does have some pretty useful moves and stats. Moving on to Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle is probably one of the banes of my existence because it always gives me trouble whenever it comes onto the field. It is a really good Paradox Pokemon. It has kind of fallen off in usage a little bit. However, I still think it's a pretty good Pokemon. I personally think it's cute. I'm gonna put it at B tier, not because I don't think it's a good Pokemon, but just because design-wise there is better looking Paradox Pokemon. Up next, we have Brute Bonnet. Brute Bonnet, I feel like literally disappeared off the face of the planet and everyone kind of forgot about it just because Amoonguss is a little bit better than it. Just because of this thing's typing, it just makes it have more weaknesses than regular Amoonguss. Therefore, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at D tier. You guys already know where Fluttermane is going. I love Fluttermane. Fluttermane is another one of the Paradox Pokemon that the second that I saw it, I thought it was adorable and I was obsessed. Not to mention, I am a huge fan of ghost types in general. And it's also a fairy type, another one of my favorite typings. I also happen to think that Misdreavus by itself is adorable as well. So it just mixes three of my favorite things together. Therefore, it is going S tier. I'm gonna say this now, I feel like nothing is gonna end up in F tier because I don't think any of the Paradox Pokemon really deserve to be in F tier because they're all pretty useful and they're all pretty cute. But up next, we have Slitherwing. And I don't know what it is about Slitherwing, but I think it's so cute and fluffy, and I think it's so funny when it stands on its two legs and it's ready to square up. it's not one that I see myself really putting on my team ever. So for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at D tier just because I would never personally use it, but I do think it's adorable and I'm sure it's probably some people's favorite Pokemon. I'm sorry that it's so low in the ranking, but it's just not my personal favorite. Up next, we have Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks is another one that I think I'm gonna go ahead and put at D tier solely because I feel like I forget that it exists. That is literally the only reason why. I literally just forget that Sandy Shocks is a thing, but it looks pretty cool. Up next, we have Iron Hands. So I did actually end up training and using an Iron Hands on my previous doubles team, so I can see why it is a popular pick when it comes to competitive or even raids. However, design-wise, I'm not really impressed by it, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it at C tier. But like I said, it is a very useful Pokemon. Moving on to Iron Jugulus. Iron Jugulus is another one that I feel like kind of just got lost to the shadows, and I feel like nobody ever really talks about it anymore. So for that reason, and because I think that it was kind of a lazy design because it looks basically the same as Hydreigon, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at D tier. Moving on to Doritos Moth, aka Iron Moth. This is another one that I personally don't see myself using on my team. However, I have run into a lot of them, and I know people really do enjoy using it. Its design does look pretty cool, so for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at B tier. Up next, we have Iron Thorns. Iron Thorns, I feel like also doesn't really get a lot of love, but I think it's one of the better looking of the future Paradox Pokemon. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it at B tier, regardless of whether or not it gets to see much use in battle or even in raids. So we got through all of the Paradox Pokemon. Now we have the 4 Ruinous Pokemon left, which just entered the VGC scene recently. So starting off with Wo-Chen, the little snail. I feel like the snail definitely has use, and I think it's kind of derpy looking and cute, so therefore I'm gonna put it at A tier. Following Wo-Chen, we have Chen-Pao, my personal favorite of the Ruinous Pokemon, therefore it is going S tier automatically. However, Chen-Pao is also very useful on my current doubles teams. It's got a really useful moveset as well as great stats. I mean, technically all of the Ruinous Pokemon have pretty good stats, but Chen-Pao has literally won me some very close matches, so it has a special place in my heart. Plus, it's adorable. It's a little snow leopard. It kind of looks like a weasel to me as well, so sometimes I call it Snow Weasel. But regardless, it's cute and it's a great Pokemon, so therefore I think S tier is warranted. Next up, we have the other bane of my existence, which is Ting Lu, this fissure using monster. And for whatever reason, I don't know what my luck is in ranked battles, but fissures always hit me. I cannot even begin to tell you how frustrating it is when a fissure hits, especially at a critical point in time when you're trying to set up an entire strategy. Like, please. And if you are paying attention to the current VGC meta, you would know that Ting Lus are everywhere and being used either with fissure or with a completely different moveset, and they are still amazing Pokemon. However, I also think it's really ugly. So because I don't really like its design, and 2, because most people have to rely on sheer luck to hit their fissures since it is a 30% accuracy move, even though against me it feels more like 80% accuracy, but I digress. But because of those 2 things, because it relies so heavily on luck and because I don't really like its design, it will have to go B tier. It is still getting points because it is a very useful Pokemon though. That thing is literally like hitting a wall. It takes like no damage. And lastly, to finish off this tier list, we have another one of my favorites, which is Chi-Yu. The little goldfish is adorable. If you don't think the goldfish is adorable, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, come on. Its little googly eyes light up. How much cuter can you get? And not to mention, it is a very useful Pokemon in the current meta, so therefore I am putting it in S tier. I also happen to have one of those on my team as well. I named it Lucky. Technically speaking, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Pokemon that I put into S tier are on my team. I have a Screamtail, I have a Fluttermane, I have a Chen-Pao, and I have a Chi-Yu. So maybe I'm a little biased because they're Pokemon that I'm currently using. But there you have it, that is how I would rank all of the Paradox and Ruinous Pokemon. Like I said, this is all strictly my opinion, and yes, the way that they look did have a large impact on where they ranked. However, I did slightly take into consideration how useful they are in either competitive battle or raids. But if you guys know anything about me, I only use Pokemon that I personally like because 1, it makes the game more fun, and 2, I just like the cute ones. But leave a comment down below what your favorite Paradox and Ruinous Pokemon is. But that's gonna go ahead and wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you did, I kindly suggest that you consider subscribing so that I can continue to make content for you guys. And if you are already subscribed and you would like another way to support the channel, feel free to check out the merch store. There is a link down below in the description that takes you to not only my merch store, but also all of my other socials so you can keep up with what I'm doing on a daily basis. But thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to those of you who have joined the channel as members. I appreciate you all so much. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.